you will lose everything. Once branded.
Dark Souls has a reputation for being one of the most difficult yet rewarding games of recent times. Dark Souls 2 marks my first entry into the series, an absence that was due in no small part to its fearsome reputation. Thus it was that I entered the world of Dark Souls, and in doing so had all of my expectations turned on their head. I want to get my gripes with the game out of the way first. The biggest complaint is the visual quality, which while looking fine during the few cutscenes, looks dreadful when in-game. The colour palette is dreary and it makes everything look ugly. Character models come off the worst, and NPCs and enemies alike look universally bad. Even your character looks weird, with disproportionate body parts and oversized clothing making you look ridiculous. I also had some issues with the game's actual mechanics, in particular enemy hitboxes. It was often very difficult to predict the exact extent of an enemy's attack. Some sweeping attacks seemed to hit me from well past the range of the enemy's weapon, while other spots that seemed dangerous at first turned out to be quite safe. I was also unable to truly experience the online portion of the game, as the servers weren't live at the time of the review. I was able to summon an NPC ally to help me during one of the game's boss fights, however I was unable to invade or defend my realm from other players. All that aside, I absolutely love Dark Souls 2, although it did take me some time to come to that conclusion. The game is brutal to be sure, but at the same time it's never unfairly so. Death is a certainty in the game. In fact, I died more times than I could count. However, death is simply just another part of the game, with each death seeing you resurrected at a nearby active bonfire, with a little bit of your humanity stripped away from you. However, death isn't without its price, as each time you die you lose a little bit of your maximum health until you're down to half of your full capacity. Your humanity can be restored by expending an effigy, although these are quite difficult to come by, so you really need to consider when is the right time to use one. You will also lose all of your souls, the game's currency. If you can make it back to where you died, you will find a glowing green marker that you can use to reclaim your lost souls. However, if you die before making it to the marker, they're gone for good. This means that hoarding money to buy better gear is a very risky venture. To add more difficulty, your hero won't naturally restore his health, although certain items will let you do so. You'll be granted an Estus flask fairly early into the game, which can be replenished at any bonfire. However, by resting, you'll respawn all of the enemies nearby, meaning that any progress you've made will be reset. It quickly breaks down into a series of entering new areas, testing out the enemies, and retreating once your flask is empty. It does make some sections feel quite grueling, as your progress can be impeded by one badly timed roll. So far, I haven't mentioned the game's story, and there's good reason for that. The game uses a very minimalistic storytelling technique. There are no quest markers, no maps, no journal. In fact, the only quest that I've found was to find the keys for a blacksmith so they could access his workshop. However, I was given no clue where to find the key. The blacksmith didn't know, so neither did I. The only real solution was to explore, and this is where Dark Souls 2 comes into its own. Now I have to confess, without the usual RPG trope of quest markers and minimaps, I initially felt an odd kind of panic. I didn't know where to go, so for some minutes I simply ran backwards and forwards looking for some kind of sign. Eventually, after finding none, I simply picked a path and went down it. Now this proved to be the wrong choice, and after sustaining a number of deaths at the hands of a giant armoured knight, I figured it was time to make a new choice. It gives the game a weird sort of non-linearity, even though there is almost a set path for you to follow. You are encouraged to explore and to try different paths, however there is nothing telling you that your choice is right or wrong beyond your ability to judge your own skills. The game's freedom extends to your character as well. Initially you'll have to choose between a number of options, such as a warrior, a cleric or a sorcerer. However, these are simply starting options, and once you're in the world you can tailor your character to match your playstyle. For example, a warrior could easily invest his souls into improving his faith, giving him access to the range of magic available to clerics. Although it's a very robust system, initially it did feel quite daunting. Combat is a huge part of Dark Souls 2, and if you go in thinking you can hack and slash your way to victory, you're going to have a bad time. Each enemy has the ability to kill you, and if you don't take caution, that's exactly what they're going to do. Patience is rewarded, and it's almost essential that you watch and learn your enemy's attack patterns. Doing so will tell you the best time to roll into a better position, as well as let you know which direction will cause you trouble. You will also need to learn how to selectively pull enemies away from a pack or risk being completely overwhelmed. The control scheme itself is fairly straightforward, although some of the button mapping did cause me issues early into the game. Your triggers and bumpers control each arm, so the right trigger will use whatever is in your right hand, and the same for the left triggers. There is a huge array of weapons to find, each with their own statistics and bonuses. Some weapons will do better than others, and will scale better with the requisite ability. As with most aspects of the games, there is a huge amount of depth to your weapon choice, and no clear best option. The big payoff for Dark Souls 2 though is the boss fights. Each boss is difficult yet interesting. They'll often take a number of tries in order to defeat. However, the sense of achievement for bringing them down is one of the game's big sells. I literally fist pumped after killing the first big enemy. You're also rewarded with a huge number of souls, meaning a quick trip back to the Emerald Herald to boost up your skills. At the end of the day, Dark Souls 2 won't be for everyone. Its reputation is well deserved, as the game's brutal combat system can put you off well before the game becomes enjoyable. It's not fun in a traditional sense, but it is deeply rewarding, and once you start digging in, there's so much to discover that one playthrough won't be enough.